Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about switching careers. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I enjoy programming, but I'm not very creative and I have a crippling fear of failure, and on top of that, I am afraid of asking for help. Should I try a different career? Well, that would probably be the easy thing, but I think that you might have to deal with some issues even if you decide to not be a programmer. Because the things that you've been telling me now, I'm gonna try my best to kind of impact my thinking around these things, but I really urge you, because I'm not gonna be able to I'm not gonna be able to give you anything that is gonna just solve this problem in one video. You're gonna have to talk to somebody, either a professional or someone you trust and so forth, and start working through some issues. But I'll do my best to see if I can give you some thoughts on your situation. So, first and foremost, I'm going to give you a trade secret, and the trade secret is that being creative is vastly overhyped when it comes to programming. I know that you may or may not, I mean, of course, every person defines being creative in different ways, and I mean, just the act of you writing software means that you are creative to some point, but you may be overestimating how much creativity you need. The thing that really matters to the vast majority of employers in the industry is not creativity, it is results. Results is the only thing that most companies care about. Creativity is a very nice thing to have and gives you a lot of value, but results are more important. And there are many, many, many developers who are they're not creative at all. They leave the creativity to other people and they simply take in requests for what needs to be built without necessarily having a lot of their own ideas or input as to how to do things better or so forth, and they just produce the results. And you can do the same thing. That will make you a very, very average developer, because that is what an average developer is. You probably have heard the term rockstar developer and stuff like that, and these people do exist, but they are usually the people who have both the creativity and the passion and all that stuff. They have, as I like to say, a lifestyle around coding, but they also are able to produce results most of the time. But just being able to produce the results, that's going to make you a developer and it's going to give you a value. You may not be able to get every single job, but there are many, many companies who are just looking for you to produce results because they have other people who can take care of the creativity part in many cases. There are issues with that as well. I'm just giving you the facts. So that's one part. The asking for help part and being afraid of that. Now, I'm going to be really boring and engineering and say that, well, technically, if you don't want to ask for help or you're afraid of asking for help, that's not really a problem if you can produce, because then you can work in as well. You don't really need anybody. You can produce the things that you need, and that's fine. But since you're stating that you're afraid of asking for help, I'm assuming that you might need to ask for help, or you're not able to produce by yourself completely at the very least. I mean, there are senior developers that I know that never ask for help practically. They don't, because most of the time they don't need it. However, if you're not able to produce and you don't want to ask for help, then you basically put yourself in a position where you can survive this. You can just stick your nose to the grindstone and figure it out and do other means. You can, I mean, if you don't like the face-to-face thing, you can ask people over instant messaging systems or on forums and stuff like that. But if the act itself of asking for help because you have some type of pride or self-conscious part of yourself that doesn't want to do that, then that's the only option. And then I can promise you, if you don't produce and you don't ask for help, then the career is going to take care of itself for you. You're going to get fired from every single job. I promise you that. Even if you were to ask for help and you're not being productive, might actually land you being fired. But the really good companies, usually what the way they handle someone who is a little bit uncommunicating or they're not creative or not producing and things like that, is that they usually send a manager to you, and the manager is going to try to figure out what's going on. And what they will do is that they will ask the question, okay, this person is not producing as much as we would like to see. and then usually you might, I mean, some companies will just fire you immediately, but the good ones will try to figure out an action plan for you to give you some warnings or some chances to kind of rectify the situation. And if they get the sense that, well, you're not producing and you're not willing to ask for help or collaborate with some mentor or someone, we might be able to help you that way. If that's not a feasible option for you because you're not willing to go through that, then they have no choice. You have tied their hands. Then they have to fire you. And that part of the career is going to take care of itself really, really quickly. The only thing I can say here is, dude, that everybody starts somewhere. Everybody needs help sometimes, and asking for help does not make you weak. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get better. It's something that everybody needs. It's no different from, I mean, literally everybody needs help at some point. So I know that might not change much for you, just me saying it, because I'm pretty sure that if you like programming, you should have some logic stored away there, and it's basic logic. So the last thing though is the crippling fear of failure, and I would say that there is usually I see that there's two ways for you to deal with this, and the two ways that people deal with crippling fear or fear in general, and in this case I would say it's crippling fear. Since it's crippling fear of failure, it's actually a really big topic. You usually either you go through it or you avoid it, and it's very normal for people to avoid specific things like spiders or insects or stuff like that if they're afraid of that. Fear of failure is a very different sort of thing. But what I suggest you, I mean, I can give you my personal preference. My personal preference would be that you go through it, because the thing is, even if you switch careers and you're no longer a programmer, you're gonna be able to fail at practically everything you can possibly imagine. Whatever you want to do is going to have the risk of failure, and that's what survival means. It is risk. It's an unknown thing. Every day has a certain amount of risk, and sure, you can try to minimize that risk because you're afraid of failure, but at the same time you can go the other route and you can simply fail on small things that feels okay, because usually there are things that scare you more and things that scare you less. And if you get okay with failing at small things, you can build up at failing at bigger things, and so your resistance is going to be built up, and hopefully you will actually grow so strong that failure isn't affecting you. I mean, nobody likes to fail, but you can care more and you can care less, and the more you do it, the less you will care. So that is, I think, probably the best way for you to deal with this. But I will give you the other option as well, because I've seen it been done, and although I may not think that it's the best thing in the world, it does work. And that is that you can become dependent on somebody who is stronger than you. This is a very popular thing that happens in relationships, usually, where you will have someone who is deeply insecure marry someone who is a little bit stronger, or someone who can provide, or something like that, and then they basically live their life completely dependent on that person. They never have to really leave the household. They don't really have to try anything, because they're, as long as they have a good relationship with this person that makes them feel safe, everything is provided for them, and they never have to develop. The thing though is that if you go that route, you go into what I like to call victim mentality, where you don't really get any survival skills. You're basically going to spend most of your life completely dependent on another person for everything. And if something changes, well, you're not really equipped to deal with any unforeseen events that may leave you to fend for yourself. And you can go this route, and there have been many people who have gone down this route either because they were forced to do this because of tradition or because of choice. And so there's no judgment here, guys. It's just one choice. The thing to know, on the other hand, is that, at least what I can see, if you go down this route, you need something to fill your life. Some people get children, some people get hobbies, something to make you feel that you have some type of value. Because if you're completely dependent on another person and you have nothing that gives you a sense of purpose or a sense of value, you're going to end up, usually at the very least, a very hollow individual. So you need something to be proud of, something for yourself. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're afraid that you're not a very creative programmer, don't be. Usually that's not a requirement, a very strong requirement at the very least to be a programmer. There's tons of programmers. I work with people like that. They're not very creative. They don't have all the ideas, but if you ask them to do something, they can produce, and that is at the end of the day the most important thing. If you're afraid for asking when it comes to asking for help, try to work on that as much as possible, because I mean you can avoid asking for help as long as you figure out a way to solve your problems. And lastly, if you're afraid of failing and things like that, I strongly suggest that you find a way to fail at small things to start off with and build up towards bigger and bigger things. Everybody starts at a different point, but usually failing at small things is okay, although it may not be nice, and it builds your personal strength. It's very much like starting to lift weights. You start with small weights and you work your way up. And hopefully that's going to help you the most. The other option would be to find someone who's stronger than you and have them practically become dependent on them, and have basically everything handed to you in one way or another. If you go down that route, I urge you, try to fill your life with something meaningful, because I've seen what happens if you when you get a little bit older and you have nothing to show, you have nothing to be proud of. It's not a nice experience. Have a great day.